Welcome to JKMoto podcast.
Is that all you got?
That's all I got.
Oh, welcome back. Your favorite motorcycle podcast, also your one-stop shop for all of your weekly motorcycle news, updates, stories, track riding, tips, racing, mechanics. I don't even know. There's no stop to what we talk about here. So welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, please, down below. If you're on YouTube, if you're on any of the other podcast platforms, i.e. Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Amazon Podcast. Am I missing some? I'm sure I am. Anyway, click follow down there. Click the download button, whatever it might be. Throw a like on the video. If you haven't checked out the YouTube channel, go check it out at Working Class Customs YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram at JKMoto Podcast. We are here for you.
Oh, man, you had a lot.
Yeah, it kind of just kept going. But
Yeah.
that's where we're at. Anyway, what are we getting into this week?
Well, first off, I'm going to ask you, did you watch Anaheim 1?
No.
I knew that was going to be your answer.
Yeah.
So that being said, we have another special guest this week. After the intro, we're gonna bring on Mike Bishop.
Who's that?
CVMA racer, longtime racer.
Okay.
Coincidentally, he's currently on a BMW, so I'll apologize ahead of time.
Here we go. We promise at some point for you guys listening that may not be BMW people, we will bring someone.
And the BMW show rolls on.
Yeah. Well, should we roll an intro?
Yeah, I sure hope Mike watched A1, so I have something to talk to him about there. But let's roll the intro and get him on here.
All right.
Yesterday at one point, I was in sixth. Miles an hour.
Welcome back. Welcome, Mike Bishop. We have Mike Bishop on the show today. CVMA racer. We're gonna learn some more about him today. Excited to get into this and talk to you. How you doing, Mike?
I'm good, man. Like I said, I'm really appreciative of you guys having me on. Seen a lot of your other podcasts. Started listening to you guys on Spotify when Lug, I think it was the first one he did. Or it might have actually been when you guys interviewed Rich and Coop at the Track Day Circus. I think that was one of the ones I saw as well. So I've known about you guys for a while. And then, obviously Cole had the pleasure to meet you at the last round and looking forward to more rounds. So, but yeah, I've watched a lot of your podcasts and I like what you guys do. It's good stuff, man. So again, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
So where do you want to start this, Easton? We're going to get to know Mike here. Where do you want to start?
Well, let's see. So, I don't want to just repeat episodes, but I do enjoy the stories. I'm always kind of curious to get people's just background. So I don't know if you can give us like a quick when you started, why you started. Everyone's, some people come from cruisers, dirt. Some people are lug nut and they just hopped on a sport bike one day and then started racing the next week. So
yeah.
What's your backstory?
I'm definitely not lug. I don't have the youth anymore, nor do I have that kind of talent. So I don't know. I'm getting there. So yeah, I'll keep the history. Is grew up riding dirt bikes, Northeast Pennsylvania. Started riding dirt bikes as a kid.
But did you say Pennsylvania?
Yeah, Northeast Pennsylvania. I grew up about 45 minutes from Scranton.
Okay.
Little town up there, out in the woods. Grew up out in the countryside. So I grew up riding dirt bikes in the summertime, snowmobiles in the winter. And then once I think all through my teenage years, I still had a dirt bike. Then I joined the military. I joined the Air Force in 1997. And I got my first street bike 3 years later. It was like might have been like December of 2000 or like early 2001. My first street bike was a Ninja ZX7R. I bought it in Tucson. I was stationed down there in Tucson, Arizona.
Okay.
I bought it. I went on a deployment. I came back from the deployment, and a couple months later, had a real bad crash. Car pulled out in front of me. So I recovered from that, and then the following year, so in 2002, the Air Force sent me to Korea, and I was home on my mid tour, like my 30-day mid tour halfway through,
Mm-hmm.
and had an itch to get a bike. So I went actually over towards Scranton, and there was a motorsports. It was Andretti Motorsports, and I walked in the door, and off in the corner of the showroom, they had an exact replica of my '01. It was the same color. It was the yellow and black Ninja ZX7R.
Okay.
So I bought it. My parents weren't too happy. So I bought it, and you're going to be like, man, why are you still riding motorcycles? 3 weeks later, or maybe it was like 2 weeks later. I think it was 2 weeks later. I was out riding, got up early one morning. I only had a couple days left, and I was getting ready to head back to Korea. So I wanted to go take the bike for a ride.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know anything about, obviously, being on the East Coast, I know you guys have deer down there. But if you know anything about Pennsylvania, white-tailed deer, they're all over the place. And one ran out in front of me, and I hit it.
Oof.
So that was my intro to motorcycles. Hit a car, hit a deer. Took about, yeah. So I took about a 2-year break, didn't ride. And then I left Korea, and I actually got stationed here in Vegas. I got stationed in Nellis. And I went and I bought, you're going to love it because the bad luck just continues with me. I went and I bought a 2004 Honda CBR 1000 RR. It was the first year they released it.
Okay.
And a couple months, I think I had it, and it got stolen from my apartment complex. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, 3 strikes, I'm out, or do I get back on the horse to keep riding? So I went back to that same dealership after the insurance, it covered the theft, and I had the gap coverage or whatever. I had some kind of extra theft protection or something.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the 05 Repsol edition CBR 1000 had just showed up at their dealership the morning that I walked in. I was eyeballing a different bike, and the salesman was like, "Hey, we've got the Repsol in the shop. We literally just took it out of the crate this morning. Do you want to see it?" And I was like, I don't know. I'd seen pictures of it, but I was like, it's too flashy. Well, then I saw it in person, and they rolled it out of the garage door, and they put it in the parking lot, and it was sunny day, and I was like, I'll take it. And I had that bike so I bought that bike in December of 04, and then I had it for 8 years.
Wow, hey, that's better. That's better luck right there.
Yeah. So first 3 bikes, not such good luck. The 05 was an awesome bike, and then in like 2000, I think it was 2012, I upgraded to the 2011 Repsol edition. So now I'm on my 3rd Honda, really liking that bike. I bought that bike, and then let me back up a little bit. In 2010, I got orders, and I left Nellis, and I went back to Tucson. I got stationed back down at Davis-Monthan.
Okay.
So started riding with some guys there, all street riders. We'd go up, we'd do Mount Lemmon on the weekends. We'd ride all over the place. We did some really cool riding down there in southern Arizona. And then a couple of these guys, really good friends of mine still to this day, they started doing track days at Indy Motorsports Ranch, which is in Wilcox, Arizona. It's about an hour east of Tucson.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, man, that sounds really exciting. And I didn't really know much. Like all the years that I was stationed here in Vegas, I didn't even know that there was track day companies because, like with Apex, we do our track days at the outer course up at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. So I went by there one time, but I just never went. I never talked to anybody. I was always interested, but I think I was kind of nervous because it was like a big jump, going from the street to the track. So then when I got down to Tucson, so back to what I was talking about, my buddies were going to the track. And they're like, hey, it's real simple. You just put some tape over your lights. You do these couple things, sign a waiver, whatever. I went and bought a cheap suit from Cycle Gear, some gloves.
What brand was the suit?
Oh, geez. It was, this is back when Cycle Gear was really pushing hard on Built.
Okay.
BILT, the Built brand. So I went and bought a suit, gloves, boots, and all that stuff. And I went to the track, and I was hooked. So my first track day ever, 2011 or 2012. It must have been 2011 because I had the 05 CBR still, the one that I had bought, that I had for 8 years. So that was my first track day, and I pretty much fell in love with it right from the get-go. And from there on, I just wanted to go back to the track. I just kept trying to go back to the track. It was hard though, being active duty and I wasn't really high ranking at the time, so I wasn't making a lot. But and plus, going through a set of tires in a weekend versus riding on the street, a set of tires might have lasted me a year or two. So
Yeah,
Right. Well,
so that was
absolutely.
let's pause there one second. So you show up on the track. You did the no. You went to your first track day on a 1,000cc bike.
Yep, sure did.
Did
Sure
you
did.
sign up for C Group?
No, so it was interesting. So my buddies that they had been there a couple times to Indy, and it's funny. I actually learned the track by watching my buddy Chris. Um, he had posted videos on YouTube. Mounted a GoPro on his bike, so I actually memorized the track watching his videos on YouTube. I watched it religiously, like every single day for like 3 weeks, multiple times a day. I just kept watching it over and over and over until I memorized the track. So when I actually got on the track, that track has a little bit of elevation. So I wasn't quite ready for that, but like I knew the layout. I knew which turn was coming up. Yeah, if you ever get a chance, man, that track is amazing. They just resurfaced it several years ago, but it's an amazing track. That whole facility is awesome.
Sweet. Yeah, I think we I don't know, that one's been on my not necessarily bucket list, but definitely on my list. We've been to what, AMP and now Atessa. So
Yeah, AMP. Well, I've got so many laps on AMP, and I finally got to ride Podium Club as well last year with CRA.
okay,
That was a good time.
good deal.
So
Well,
yeah, first track day on a 1,000, and I signed up for. So they had like A, B plus, and then like B minus and C group. Instead of having 3 groups, they just had 2. So I signed up for the A, B plus because my buddies that I rode with on the street, they were like, "Trust me, you're good enough. You're fast enough. You've ridden with us. You'll be fine." It's funny. So the first session out, it's 8:00 in the morning. Track's cold. And one of the control riders, I don't even remember which organization was hosting the track day at this point. It might have been Excel. I can't remember. One of the control riders actually came up to the upper parking lot, the upper paddock, and found where I was parked. And he actually came up to me. He's like, "Hey, man, you doing okay? You feel okay? Is your bike all right?" And I was like, "Yeah, why?" He's like, "Oh, I just wanted to make sure, you were kind of holding traffic up out there." and I was like, "Wow," and I said, "Well, it's the first session of the day. Like the track's cold. I'm not trying to push it. I'm here on my street bike." So after that, I picked up the pace a little bit and no more issues for the rest of the day. But that's pretty funny. My first time on track, I basically got called out by one of their control riders. So
that's good.
It happens.
Yeah.
doing their job.
Well, can we go back to the ZX7?
Absolutely.
Okay. Just because I've known a person that had one. He was actually putting one back together, just trying to find all original parts. I guess let's just kind of make a story out of that. Just kind of motorcycle to motorcycle. You obviously went back to a ZX7. You didn't have the first one for too long, so
Yeah,
it might be
no,
that.
I
But
did.
how does a older bike, 750, but how does she compare to the current stuff we got?
Oh man, it's funny. I think back to that bike, and the first one. I mean, it still had the tires on it that were on it when I bought it from the dealership. It still had those same tires. It was like 8 months to the day after I bought it was when I hit that car. I think the only thing I did to it, like I took the turn signals off and put like flush mounts because I started riding with this group of guys in Tucson, and I kept I saw everybody else's bikes, and I kind of liked some of their bikes, like what they had done to them, customize them and stuff. So I put like a fender eliminator kit on it and like a smoke windscreen, and that was about it. Other than that, the bike was bone stock. 2001. There was no such thing as ABS, traction control, wheelie control. None of that stuff. I mean, it was just. And as far as power, I think the bike they listed the power at 106 horsepower for a 750.
Interesting. Okay.
So think about modern day 600s now. R6s with a good tune, you can get upwards of 125, 130 horsepower out of those bikes. So,
yeah,
absolutely. But for the time being, it was a fast bike. I had no problems getting up to speed quick.
Yeah.
But the technology just wasn't there yet. It didn't have anything like what today's modern bikes have.
So I know we're bouncing a little bit here. We're going back and peppering your story, but
that's okay.
So you hit a deer with the second one. Were there any injuries in that accident?
Yeah. So ironically, the first one, when I hit that car, it was late on a Friday night. It was dark. It was like 10 or 10:30. And this older guy, I was going too fast down a street that was not very well lit up. And he just, he couldn't tell how fast I was going. And he was pulling out of a side street, made a left turn in front of me. And I look back, if that had happened to me now, like my knowledge and my ability and my skills, like knowing how bikes work and knowing like not to panic. I mean, I basically panicked. I hit the front brake, I locked up the rear brake, and then the bike fishtailed and went down. And then the bike and my body both hit the side of his car, and then I flew over the car. I walked away from that crash with no broken bones. I did have a pretty good chunk taken out of my right knee. I have a nice scar from it. Fast forward to the deer, a year later, I did break my wrist, a tiny little bone in my right wrist. So I had to go and they put a cast on my arm. And then, like I was telling you guys, I was home on leave. I was stationed in South Korea. So like a week later, I had to get back on a plane and fly back to Korea because my mid-tour was over. And I showed up, walked into the office to my flight chief, and he saw the cast and he's like, "What'd you do?" And I told him the story. And he's like, "All right, you're going to do all the paperwork and computer work for the guys." So that was in September. The cast was on my arm until like a week before Christmas.
Wow. Okay.
So they were pretty mad at me when I got back to work because I couldn't.
So is it true with a deer? You just, gas up, lean back, and close your eyes?
Oh man. It's crazy because I was riding through the woods. I was only like 2 or 3 miles from my house. So, I mean, I'd been down this road a million times.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew it was early morning, and I knew that there was usually deer feeding off to the side of the road. On either side of the road was wide open fields. And I wasn't even really thinking about it. I was just coming through. The sun was just coming up. It was probably like 7:30 in the morning. And this doe, she just, I don't know, maybe the sound of the bike spooked her. And she just darted out in front of me. I can still visualize it. As the deer was coming out of the field, running in front of me, I remember thinking, like, in my mind, I'm like, oh crap. Like, I literally didn't have enough distance to swerve, to downshift, to brake. Because I was probably doing like 50, 55, maybe, I don't know, maybe 60. I can't remember. But she was on she was full stride. She was running full speed for the road. And I literally had no option. Like, I don't even think I hit the brake, to be honest. I just held on for dear life, hit the deer broadside. And then me and the bike just went flying down the road.
Wow.
I had deer all over me. It was pretty gross.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, to take it back to the track, have you ever had a deer hit you out on the track?
No, and that's why we do those things. Funny you should bring that up because I figured at some point it was probably going to come up in the conversation. I did have another rider hit me 2 years ago, but we'll get to that.
All right.
That was my first on track collision. I was collected by another rider up in Utah, but we'll hold that for later in the discussion when we get there.
Oh man, Utah.
Yeah, I was racing USBA.
Thinking Utah. Okay, so we're on your second CBR. How long were you going to the track before you decided to throw some numbers on that thing?
I had that 2011. The 05 is the one I took on the track, and I did take my 2011 to the track a couple times, but never to race. I took it out a couple times after I started working with Desert. At the time it was Desert Road Racing. I got my first race license at Arroyo Seco. I was racing with ASMA. So I did a bunch of track days at a little go-kart track in Tucson. I decided, and once I had the taste of the track and I really wanted to I wanted to keep going back, I knew that I wasn't going to put my 2011 on the track because I love that bike. So I actually found, it was like a friend of a friend had an 03 CBR 600. He also lived in Tucson. I bought the bike for dirt cheap. If you saw pictures of it when I first got it, you'd be like, there's no way you put that bike on the track. It was, it was a science project. I'll just say that.
Okay.
it was multiple colors. It had Bondo holding the front fender together. So I basically stripped that bike down to motor and frame. I got some hot bodies fairings, and just piece by piece, I just started putting all of the track goodies, if you will. Did the fairings. It didn't even have, it had the old style forks. Like, didn't have inverted forks. It had the standard forks on that 03. So, I just chains, sprockets, clip-ons, rear sets, exhaust, a couple case covers. And I think I put a master cylinder on it too. I can't remember. So I started riding that bike at a go-kart track in Tucson. It's called Musselman Honda Circuit. We started doing bike nights out there because in the summertime, out there, Southern Arizona, daytime, you can't ride. It's too hot. Mm-hmm. So the owners of the track would do bike nights on Saturdays, and we would ride from 4 p.m. till 10 p.m. So I started riding the track with my 03 CBR 600. And then a couple guys that raced at Arroyo, they would come down occasionally as well to Tucson, and they would do track, bike nights with us. So we weren't racing, but we were doing time attacks and stuff. Like, we throw a transponder on the bike and they would just time us, and like top three, you'd get like, $50 or you get like a free track night or whatever. So I did that for like a whole summer. And then somebody that raced at Arroyo was like, hey man, you should come over to Arroyo. You're pretty quick here. You bring your bike down to Arroyo, sign up for the new racer school, and, get your race license. So I was like, okay. So, and the reason I remember it so vividly, I got my race license. It was the weekend of my 35th birthday. So I did the racer school I did practice on Friday in the racer school. And then Saturday morning I went and somebody had like yellow duct tape and I made a makeshift number plate. And that was the first time I put numbers on a bike because my number was 35. Because I think the next day was going to be my 35th birthday. So that was 10 years ago this year.
There you go. Yellow duct tape. I like that.
Yeah, it worked,
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
Worked. So we got to figure out how to get these kids on the track quicker
at a younger age.
Yeah, absolutely. I look back from where I started to where I am now, and I think my only regret is that I waited so long to actually take the initiative and actually go do a track day. Because like I said, when I was stationed here in Vegas, I was here from 2003 to 2010. I was riding street bikes, and I had ridden by the track a couple times, but I just never had the courage to go up and talk to somebody and be like, hey, how do I get into this? Right. I wasn't, I don't know. I wouldn't say shy, but like, for whatever reason, I just didn't do it. And I kind of regret that because I could have started way earlier in my career, or way younger, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I think there's I don't know. I think there's a feeling for a lot of people that they go buy a motorcycle, but a track day in their head is racing, basically. Right. It's on the same realm, and that's so far, it's unreachable almost. And so they don't even look into it. But I mean, I can tell you, it was funny that you mentioned that you had that experience where you're like, well, I wanted to, but I never really knew if I could, because I've met so many people that ride sport bikes. I'm like, well, you going to the track? They're like, well, no. I'm like, why not? They're like, well, I don't really know. I'm like, look, man, you go buy a suit. You already have a helmet. You probably have boots and gloves. If not, pick up some boots and gloves, and then you Google track day near me, and then get after it.
Especially now with you can get on Facebook and you can just put anything into the search bar for motorcycle track days or anything like that. And the forums and the groups that are out there, there's, hundreds of them, if not more. But of course I don't even know if we had Facebook back then. I don't even think we did. So definitely, there's a lot of people like what you just described. I've worked with people that were also in the military, and they had the same thought, like when I started riding track, and I would talk to them and they're like, oh, that sounds so cool. I want to do that. And I had a lot of buddies, in Tucson when I was doing track. And then like when I got into racing, and I would still ride with them on the weekends. And then, like if I missed a weekend, the following weekend, I'd go back out and ride with them and like, dude, where were you last weekend? I'm like, I was at the track. I was racing. And they're like, man, I got to get into that. So I started handing out business cards, because at the time I was riding with with Desert Road Racing, and then which eventually became DRO Track Days. But I started handing out business cards to people. I invited a bunch of my buddies. We rode up to Phoenix. It was like June or July. It was so hot, but my buddy was having a bike night at his shop up in Phoenix. And I was like, you guys come up with me, like, come check it out. We do track days, like, just come check it out. So, and a bunch of them did, but none of them wanted to make that transition from the street to the track.
Interesting.
Well,
Well,
it seems like, I mean, same thing we're saying. Two questions for you. Well, one, just a comment. I just recently started a couple years ago, started doing track days. I just recently went and got a race license as a bucket item, and they got me. They pulled me in.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'm stuck now. Ain't going anywhere else. But I just remember, since it was so not very long ago, what a huge deal that seemed like it was going to be. And I just had to force myself. I mean, I didn't really have anybody here in my mind. I don't have a neighbor or a friend in the neighborhood that's doing it. And so I just started doing the research and said, I think you're supposed to wire your oil cap or something. Let's show up.
Right. Yeah.
And see what's happening. But it seemed like a huge deal. Once you get through that, I think all of us can probably look back and go, it's really not as big a deal as we thought. It's just kind of a lack of easy information, and little hand holding would go a long ways, I think, to get more people out to the track.
Yeah. Absolutely. If it wasn't for my buddies, Chris and Brandon, if I had never met them, I'd be honest, I don't know if I would be where I'm at right now. I actually talk to Brandon quite often, or not quite often, but every now and then, since I got the new bike, we've been talking a lot because he had a BMW that he rode on the street as well. If I hadn't met them and they talked about the track, I just remember one random Saturday night, neither one of them was there. And I was like, I messaged them like, where are you guys? And like, oh man, we're not coming out tonight. We rode the track today. And I was like, you guys ride track? Like where? I had no idea.
right.
So, and then they're like, dude, next time we go out, come with us. So I was definitely nervous, but at the same time, I knew that they were going to be there and they had already done it. So kind of like what you said, basically held my hand, walked me through the whole process, go to the website, fill out the forms, fill out the waiver. And because it's track day, obviously not as many requirements as racing. Right. So, but if it hadn't been for them, I don't know if I would be where I'm at today. I don't know if I would be racing. I don't know if Moto America would be, that's not even anything. I wouldn't be doing any of it. So just them getting me to the track that one time literally changed my future.
Well, I think just one more thing to add to that is, since I'm so fresh going through that, I think the people that I still talk to today, and when I see people talking to other people, sometimes they present it in a way that, oh yeah, just do this. It's no big deal. And I just say, listen, the first time they do it, it is a big deal. Yeah. And they don't need just, hey, it's easy, just do it. They need, go here, grab this, sign that, pick up this, and they'll get there. But I think we lose a lot of people that way.
Yeah. It can be overwhelming.
I think it also takes more often than not, it does take a friend, right? It's kind of almost dragging the person through it. And then, like yourself, Mike, like, I think I kind of went on my own, but like Cole here, like you, like a lot of us, then you get addicted and then you're over there trying to drag more people. So definitely.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because like every time I'd ever go and, I'd do a track day or a race weekend, and then I'd go out the following weekend, ride with my buddies, we do our typical Saturday night ride. And like, sometimes I would record, I'd have a GoPro on, I'd like post up videos or whatever. And they'd be like, man, that's so cool. That looks like so much fun. I really want to do that. And then a couple of them did come out to Indy for one of our track days, I think with DRO track days. I got a couple of them to sign up, and they actually did really well. I think one of them, I had a coworker too that was riding street bikes, and he knew that I raced and I did track days. And at that point, I was a control rider essentially, or I think I was actually teaching the new rider school for DRO track days. And I got him to come out, and he rode with me all day. And then he was like, "Hey man, when's the next track day? When's the next track day?" But it wasn't until that point, like once he actually did it the first time, he was always asking me like, "When's the next one? When's the next one?" So I'd send him the link to the website, like, "Hey, here's our calendar. You can sign up. Here's the rest of the year. It's all scheduled. So
Yep.
yeah, I think a lot of people would do it more. It's just taking that first step is big. It's definitely a big step. But once you get into it, like you guys both know, it is very addicting. And it's like, once you're in, you're in.
Yep. Yeah. And then all your money goes to tires, and yeah, it's great.
Yeah. I think sometimes I think about how much money I'd have if I hadn't gotten into this, and then I just stop because it's depressing.
Yeah. Yeah. You were talking about, I guess we were all talking about video games right before we started. And, I got a lot of friends that play video games, and I just I laugh sometimes. Not that I really have anything against it, you do you, whatever, but they're talking about buying a new video game, and I'm like, I wish. 60, $70 for a video game. You go out there for a track day, you got $200 for the ticket, the gas to get there, and then a set of tires is gone. Don't
Right.
let that deter any of the listeners out there. It's great. You'll enjoy it.
Hey,
But
yeah, I remember putting a brand new set of I can't remember if they were Q3s, Q3 pluses. This was on an R6, another bike that I had raced. That was actually after the Honda CBR 600. And I remember doing a track day. It wasn't open to the public. I got to be good friends with somebody that was a member out at Indy. And a couple of us went out there. They invited us out, and we went out and did a private track day. There was like 10, 15 bikes on the track the whole day. So, and it was open set. There was no sessions. It was like, track's open, go ride.
Right.
And I put a brand new set of tires on, and like by the end of the day, they got me through the whole day, but they were gone. And I was like, man, that was, what, $400 some odd gone.
Yeah.
But it was worth every penny.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I was going to say that, you just brought up going from the CBR to the R6. Can we get the race bike timeline, if that makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I was saying earlier, the first time I put number plates on a bike was that 03 CBR 600. I didn't finish telling that story, so more bad luck, I guess, for me. So I put the number plates on it, and then I went out. We had like a morning warm up, and then we had our qualifying session. So I was qualifying for amateur middleweight with ASMA.
That sounds like a fight.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool track too. It's very, very technical, very tight. It's not a big track. I think it's like a mile long or something. Okay. But the guys that do race out there, I mean, they are the ones that have experience and have laps around that track. It's unreal how quick they're getting around that track. It's got some tight sections. So I go out for morning warm up. I ride for a little bit, and then I'm, throw the transponder on. I'm like, all right, qualifying session's coming up. And I get out on the track, and I do like 1 or 2 laps, get warmed up, and then I'm like, all right, I put my head down. Now it's time to put in a couple flyers. And I got black flagged. Didn't know what was going on. So I'm coming off the back straight, and there's a section at Arroyo called the S's. Well, there's a little pull-off part of the track you can pull off to get out of the way of the S's. And there was a corner worker there, and he's waving the black flag at me. He's like, hey, come over. So I pull up next to him. I shut the bike off, and I was like, what's going on? And he's like, he goes, your bike is smoking really bad, only on the straightaways when you're like at full throttle. Well, come to find out, I take the bike back to the pits, and Roger, awesome dude, he owns the track. He's the owner of ASMA, the race series there. He came running over, a bunch of people. We pulled the belly pan off, and there was oil. The engine block was cracked. It had a hairline crack right where the belly pan mounted up to the bottom of the engine. So we tried to put JB weld on it. It didn't work. So my first time trying to race, I didn't even get to race. I didn't even qualify. So I loaded the bike up, put it in the trailer, went home, and I got online. I started searching for engines because I only spent a little bit of money on this bike. It wasn't a lot. And I was like, I don't want to buy another race bike right now. I can't really afford it. So I found a company in like Florida, I think it was. They were parting out motorcycles, and they had an 06 CBR 600 motor. With shipping, I bought the engine, and they shipped it to me, and I think it cost me like $600 for the engine. So they shipped it to me, and then I took the bike. Yeah, it wasn't a bad deal. So they shipped the engine to me. I took the engine and the motorcycle because I was still kind of a newbie when it came to like working on my own stuff. And I took the bike downtown to a buddy of mine, and he swapped the engine. Now, mind you, that happened in April of 2014. It took me a little while to save up the money and then getting all the work done. I, take the bike apart, get the bike back, put it all back together. I think it was like July or August, and ASMA, they take the summer break off just because of how hot it is. So I think like the next round was coming up in like September of that year. I think it was their final round of the season. It was like September or October. So I took the bike back to the track, and mind you, I hadn't ridden all summer because or on the track anyway, that was my dedicated track bike.
Mm-hmm.
So I took the bike back to Arroyo and did the Friday track day. It got super windy on Saturday, like huge gusts of wind coming through. And I didn't have a lot of laps on this track, so I was super slow. Like the fast guys out there run like 108s. I think the track record's like a 107 or a 108 lap time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was running like 116s, 115, 116, something like that. It might have even been slower. I can't remember now. And I was so like discouraged and disappointed because I was getting lapped in the races that on like my second race of the day, like halfway through, I just pulled off the track, took the bike back to the pits, loaded it up, and went home. And I was like, okay, if I'm going to get serious about racing, I need a faster bike. The R6 comes into the picture in the following year. It was like late 2014 or early 2015. I had a coworker that they knew I was looking for a bike. And he's like, hey, I've got another friend of a friend. Come to find out, it was somebody that knew the guys that I rode streets with. And he only lived a couple miles down the road from me. He had a 2012 R6 that was it was a full track bike. Like he actually raced it at Arroyo in the middleweight series. So I bought that bike for like $2,200. That's all he wanted for it. It's I won't give you the background story, but basically he acquired the bike from somebody else, and it was pretty beat up. It was in a crash, and he just wanted back the money that he had invested in the motorcycle to get it running again. He wasn't trying to make a killing. He wasn't trying to make a profit. And because we had, mutual acquaintances, I was like, how much I think he wanted, initially he said he wanted $2,500. So I messaged him and I said, I'll give you $2,000 cash right now. And he goes, tell you what, $2,200, the bike's yours. So I drove over to his house. He lived a couple miles from me. I drove over to his house. It had a set of street tires on it. I brought my helmet. I took it down the street, back, put it on my trailer, and brought it home.
I thought you were about to say you rode it home.
No. Yeah. No, it was, but I mean, the bike itself at the time, it needed nothing. It needed a set of tires. That was it. So I stripped the bike. This was like a hobby of mine too. Every time I got a new bike, I would like tear the bike down to basically motor and frame just to see how does everything work, pretty much like, car guys, what's under the hood. I wanted to, what's under the fairings, because I didn't know anything about this bike. I'd only ridden mostly up to that point. All of my riding, like 99% of it was on Hondas. So I bought the R6, brought it home, stripped it down. I think I put clip-ons on it, and that was about it. And it was already painted up. It was like this cool red and white theme, and put a number plate on it, and started doing track days. And then trying to remember. Oh, I remember. So I was doing these track days, these bike nights still at at Musselman Honda Circuit, the little go-kart track in Tucson. And a buddy of mine who's a very good friend of mine now, you met him, Cole, Will Russell at the last round at CBMA. So we got to know each other, and I had heard of him before from other people that rode in Tucson, but I never met him. So I met him one night out there, and he and I were doing time attacks, and we were it was him and I just battling back and forth the whole night, having a lot of fun. We got a chance to talk afterwards, and then we stayed in touch over like the next couple months, probably like the next year, honestly. And I was still doing track days, but I hadn't gotten into racing. And he's like, hey, there's this company called Desert Road Racing. My buddy Jason, he's the owner, and he races. He's based out of Phoenix, but he does track days and at Indy. He does track days at Phoenix and racing as well. So they were racing at Indy, and at the time he was racing at Wild Horse Pass Motorsports Park in Phoenix. It's got the east and west. It's the old Firebird Raceway.
Okay, I think I've heard of it.
Yeah, so they also there's like NHRA drags. Those guys go out there. I don't know if they are still doing drags though, like at the pro level. That track is kind of it could use some. It could use a resurface. It's been a while. I know the
Cool.
East Course resurfaced years ago, but we just stopped riding on it for some reason.
Hmm.
So I signed up with Desert Road Racing, and then took it out. But since it had been about a year or two since I had gone through a new racer school, Will was like, "Hey, come out, sign up for the new racer school, go through it with us. You'll learn the track." So we were at West Course at Wild Horse. So I signed up. He was coaching the class, the new racer clinic. So I went with those guys, even though I had a race license. Technically I still had my ASMA license, but it had been a while. So I signed up, did the school, signed up for races, and successfully got through my first weekend of actual racing for the first time on the R6. And I think that was in 2015 is when that happened. And then, went back did East Course, and then we did some races at Indy, which Indy was awesome because I knew that track very well already from doing track days out there.
Yeah. So as far as, I mean, you mentioned you want to get something faster. Hopped on a newer R6. Did that hit that mark? Was it? I haven't actually ridden an R6 or a CBR. Just kind of curious.
So that bike, same as the CBR 600, no electronics, no ABS, no traction control, none of that stuff. But just the technology, the difference from a 2003 CBR 600 to a 2012 R6, obviously, that bike had about 10 more horsepower than the CBR did, but it wasn't so much the power. It was more like the delivery, like the bike. It was so smooth. Like when I got it, it did not have quick shift. That was one of the other things that I threw on it was quick shift and auto blip. So that really helped out a lot, which I think now, just about every modern day bike has those.
Right.
But at the time that was like, the bikes didn't come with that, at least not the R6 didn't. You had to buy that. So, but it was just the delivery, and it just had power it had better power in areas that the Honda didn't. That Honda was very, severely lacking on power. Basically, it took a lot to get the bike. Like you had to get the bike up to speed, and then you had to maintain to keep that bike going fast. Whereas the R6, I could just come out of a corner and just crack the throttle, and that thing would just get up and move. Mm-hmm. So that was a huge upgrade over the Honda, which I ended up selling after I rode it. So I had both bikes for a while, and I was bouncing back and forth. I couldn't decide if I was going to keep it, and I was like, well, if I crash one, at least I've got a backup. So I had both of those bikes for about 2 years in the garage, and then I finally said, I'm not really riding the Honda anymore, so I sold that.
So to just kind of keep on this theme, you said this about 2015, 8 years later. I'm hearing BMW. We have anything in between those?
Yeah. So I raced the R6 with Desert Road Racing in 2015 and 2016, both years as an amateur. I think I got one or two. I'm trying to remember. Trophies are upstairs. I think I got one or two podiums as an amateur. I got a couple second places and a couple third places in the amateur middleweight series with Desert Road Racing. Mm-hmm. And then Desert Road Racing, they stopped racing at the end of 2016. So I was kind of depressed because I was like, I knew of Chuck Walla just talking to Will, but at the time, again, I was in Tucson and I knew it was going to be, I looked it up. I'm like, okay, that's 6 hours each way.
Right.
Plus like we were talking about earlier, the gas, the tires, the transportation costs, just everything all of the costs associated with racing. When I was racing with Desert Road Racing, it was very convenient because Phoenix was an hour and a half to 2 hours. Indy was an hour. It was very easy for me to go to those tracks because they were just close. And again, I didn't make a lot of money. So I finally pulled the trigger on Chuck Walla. Will talked me into it at round one of two. So Desert Road Racing stopped in 2016. I did not race in 2017. And then all 2018, I was just doing track days with Desert Road Racing became DRO track days. So we were still riding. I just wasn't competitively racing. So round one of the 2018 Winter Series, I told Will, I said, all right, I'm coming out, loaded up the bike, loaded up the RV, and drove out to Chuck Walla. I didn't have to do the new rider school because I still had my credentials from ASMA and from Desert Road Racing. So initially, I was going to sign up for expert because I was like, hey, I have 2 years of racing experience under my belt. I have a lot of track time under my belt now at this point, which I thought was a lot. Looking back, it really wasn't. So I talked to Will and I said, hey, I'm on the website. I'm signing up. Should I sign up for expert or should I sign up for amateur? And he messaged me back and he goes, it was something to the effect of, I don't want to crush your dreams, but he goes, sign up for amateur because the amateur grids out there are fast. Like if you go out there and sign up for expert right off the bat, he's like, you're not going to survive. He's like, do a season of amateur at least. And he was right. My first amateur season, so I did the whole season. I did all 7 rounds and no podiums. I think I may have gotten a top 10 maybe once or twice. I remember, I'll never forget this. My first weekend at Chuckwalla, again, it was September of 2018. And I went out and did the Friday track day. At the time was hosted by Track Days. Dustin Coiner was the owner or is the owner. So they were doing the Friday track days. So I signed up with them and I rode all day because I wanted to get, I needed as much seat time on the track as possible. Well, that kind of backfired because I was exhausted Saturday morning when I got up. And that weekend, I think it hit 113 degrees. And I remember being out there with Will and a couple other guys, and I started meeting all these new people. They basically accepted me and like brought me into like their crew. And I remember telling these guys, I'm like, you guys are insane. Like, how do you race in this? And they're like, well, this is kind of abnormal. It's usually not this bad. But yeah, it was like 112 or 113 degrees my first weekend at Chuck. And I was like, there's no way I could do this. But obviously the season went on and the temperatures dropped. That was my first season out at Chuck. I didn't get enough points to get the bump. When the next year came around, now having raced a full season, added a couple little goodies to the R6, made it more competitive. I did my second season as an amateur as well. And I podiumed twice that season. But more importantly, the season prior, I never got a top 10, I don't think, the whole year. My second amateur season, I finished 4th overall in Super Sport and Formula Middleweight. So it was me and 3 other guys. Those 3 were always just slightly faster than me. Had a couple good battles on track with my buddy Lee. We went at it a lot, him and I jostling for 3rd place. So I did get a couple podiums, but I pretty much finished 4th or 5th in every single race the second season. So after that, I got the bump, and that's when I got my expert plates.
Good deal, man. 113 degrees. That's why they're in the winter, right?
Yeah. It's usually rounds 1 and 7 are the worst. September and April. 2020 after COVID, when all of that stuff came out about social distancing, you can't have large group gatherings, yada yada yada. They had to postpone round 7. It should have been in April. And we ended up having it the last weekend in May. I think it was like Memorial Day weekend. And it was like 114 degrees that weekend as well. It was absolutely brutal. There were so many times I thought I was just going to pass out. Potassium, sodium, I was going through water and Pedialyte and Powerade and eating bananas. And like, it was nuts. It was nuts.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. I've done a track day at 90s, a track day. Yeah. I can't imagine trying to run a race in over 110 degrees. That's a race day, just full. Yeah.
Yeah. Most of us, like, I had like those wet towel things, I would soak it in a cooler and then put it in the freezer. And then right as I was about to head out on track, before I zipped up my suit, I would tuck that like over my shoulders and around my neck. And then I'd have a buddy like pour an entire bottle of cold water down my back as I'm about to mount the bike to go out on track. And by lap 2, I couldn't even tell I had an ice cold towel. It was crazy. But back to what you were asking about. So I had the R6, 2 amateur seasons, got the white plates, did my first season as an expert with the R6. And I think it was like round 3, because I remember it was the December round. I was only doing the middleweight classes, and a bunch of my buddies, Anthony was one of them, Will, Richard, a couple other guys, they were like, hey man, if you want to get faster, you have to ride with faster people. So they had talked to me at rounds 1 and 2 about signing up for the shootout, because only experts can race that. And at the time, we didn't have, like, now we have the Super Sports Shootout, which is middleweights. At the time, it was just the CVMA Shootout. And it was like, my first time getting on the grid, I think I gridded in like P19 or P20. And I was the last guy on the grid. But I signed up for it. And I was racing, you know, there may have been one or two other R6s in the group, but like that was like Chad Lewin or, you know, Michael Gil. Actually, I think Gilbert's on it. Like the fastest of the faster on the track. And I'm just looking in front of me at all these bikes. And I'm like, my first thought is like, I can't believe I let these guys talk. I let them talk into it. I'm like, what am I doing? And that flag went down and we all took off, and it's a 10 lapper. So by about the time I saw cross flags, I was expecting to just, you know, to be like, oh my gosh, I can't finish, because I had never, you know, all the other races were 6-lap races.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember I saw crossed flags and I was like, wow, I'm still in it. And I somehow managed to get around I got around an R1 and a ZX7R, only because I was able to outbrake them, you know, carry more entry speed. But I finished that race, and I remember coming off the track. I got back to my pit. A couple guys were there. They put the bike on stands. They put the warmers on for me. I went in the RV and I just laid down on the couch for like 45 minutes. I was like, I was dead. But looking back on it, it was worth it, because like that gave me that hunger to, you know, I wanted to get faster. Right. So, and I don't remember what my lap time was, but I'm pretty sure I set a PR in that shootout. So then I did the shootout for the remaining rounds of the season. I signed up for the shootout on my little underpowered R6 and just, you know, just gave her hell. So I had the R6.
So then you decided you needed a bigger bike.
Yeah.
Can't get faster unless
I'll keep this one short because I know I'm just rambling on here. So before the BMW came into play, that beautiful 2011 CBR 1000 Repsol edition that I loved so much, my buddy Jason, the one that had the shop in Phoenix, Ricardo Veloce, hi Jay, shout out. He had a 2000. I remember I was online and I was looking at 1000s because my bike, again, it was a 2011 and this was in 2019, so it was 8 years old. And I was still doing those Saturday night rides with my buddies. And I was like, man, I've got to get all my friends are on like new R1s, BMWs, new Cowies. Like, so we would go out and ride, and these guys would smoke me on some of our rides. And they had all of the electronics and all of this and that. And I was like, all right, it's time. So I reached out to him because I had found a 2016 Aprilia that was online. So I sent him the link and I said, hey, I know that you know Aprilias, you sell them, you've ridden them. Is this worth the deal? What the guy was asking. And he sent me back a picture of a 2017. It was the RSV4. It was the RF version. So it was like it was like their factory racing edition, whatever. Mm-hmm. He sent me the link, or he sent me pictures of the bike, and he goes, here's what the 2016 has. Here's what the 2017 has. Here's all the upgrades. He said the engine's the same, but the 2017 has a lot of upgrades in terms of brakes, suspension, electronics. And he goes, I can sell it to you. I forget what I paid for it, but he's like, I can give it to you for this cost out the door. And it was only like a couple grand more than the 2016. So I bought that Aprilia. Told my wife I was going up because he was doing a track there. He was doing like a bike night or whatever at the shop. So I said, hey, I'm going to take the bikes up to put them on display to try to pull in some customers for the track day company, which was DRO Track Days. What she didn't know is that I was trading in my Repsol in for the 2017 Aprilia. So I drove the bike up that morning and I came home later in the day with my R6 and my new to me RSV4. Needless to say, she wasn't too happy about that. She actually liked riding on the back of the Honda, the Aprilia, not so much. So I rode. Yeah. The seat, the Honda actually had a really comfortable rear seat. The Aprilia, I mean, it was like literally, it was like the size of a phone.
It's got the 4-inch shelf on the top.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So why not? So a lot of times people get stuck in a little bit of a rut. Like I see in the early days, you didn't have a lot of seat time on the ZX7s because, you know, unfortunate incidences.
Right.
But once you found Honda, you liked Honda. When you went to the R6, was it out of convenience or?
It was definitely convenience. And honestly, at the time, it was because I had a budget and I didn't want. I was willing to spend, a couple thousand more, but when the guy told me that he was going to sell me this bike that is fully race prepped for $2,200, I was like,
Right.
and this was in 2014, so the bike was 2 years old. I think it
Mhm.
had 3 or 4,000 miles on it. I mean,
Okay.
the bike was basically brand new. So I could not pass that up. And I knew that it was going to be a huge improvement over that CBR 600 that I was riding.
Agreed. So same question. So now we're still a Honda fan,
Oh, absolutely. I still am to this day. I love Hondas.
but then you went and just grabbed
Went
an
Euro.
Aprilia instead of a new CBR.
Yeah. So this was after years of riding. I loved my Honda. I loved both of them. The 05 was an awesome bike. The 11 was an awesome bike. But and you guys probably know this just like everybody else does. I mean, from like 2012 to even up until probably 2-3 years ago, the CBR 1000, they didn't make any changes. They made tweaks to the engine for performance and power delivery, ergonomics a little bit here and there. They changed the styling. They added some electronics to the bike. Dashes and the TC and the quick shift and all that stuff. But like overall, Honda wasn't really doing a lot to keep up with their competitors. And then, of course, I forget what year BMW came out with the S1000, but like that bike just started. It was blowing everybody else out of the water. And my buddy Brandon, the one that got me into track in the first place, he had an '08 CBR, and then he went and bought, I think it was a 2014 S1000. And the first time he brought that out, I like, we had places around Tucson. We had areas where we would go, have a little fun, so to speak.
Mhm.
And, bike versus bike versus bike versus bike.
Yeah, the Mexico border is right there. We understand.
Yeah. No, there's a little section in Tucson. It's called Aviation Highway, and it's just maybe it's a mile and a half long, but it's like a shortcut that'll get you like into like the heart of downtown Tucson.
Okay.
But it's 2 lanes, but it's separated by like a 50-foot median that has like concrete on either side. And the other side is a giant wall because there's railroad tracks there. So we used to race each other. We had like this little thing that we did. We would get, nose to nose, and there was a certain traffic light. We would all drop it down into like first or second gear, like 30 or 40 mile an hour roll on, and then just go when we'd hit that traffic light. And at the time, before he bought that BMW, my Honda was actually one of the faster bikes. Not by much. I mean, I would pull away from these guys. We would basically race from one light to the next. And sometimes if he got a good jump, he'd get me or I'd get him. But like more often than not, until these guys started coming out with BMWs, I was always like right there, towards the front. Well, he got that BMW, and I mean, I saw nothing but taillights. And I was like, wow, I need a new bike. So,
Okay.
I mean, I kept it for several years. I did like that bike. It's very, very smooth, very, very comfortable to ride, easy to work on. But it was time. The bike had, oh man, I don't even remember how many thousand miles were on it. It was up there. I put a lot of miles on that bike. But this Aprilia was just sitting there. It was like the shiny new toy under the Christmas tree. And I was like, I need this bike.
So we got to put the Aprilia on pause before we leave the Honda real quick. I did some Instagram stalking on you, and you put that thing on a drag strip one time.
Oh, that was my 05.
Was it?
That was my 05. Yeah, I actually did that here when I was stationed here the first time. Friday nights, they called it Midnight Mayhem. I believe they still do it. You can pretty much take anything, and I don't even know if it has to be street legal, but they do cars, trucks, bikes, whatever you want to drag race. I think it was like $100 fee. You had to sign a waiver, and then, you just had to have basically like what you would have to go to the track. Full suit or, full suit, over the ankle boots, gauntlet style gloves and helmet. I think the only thing I didn't have was a tether for the kill switch. But the guys, they saw that I had everything else, and they were like, let him go. So I did that on one Friday night, maybe 10 or 12 passes. My whole goal for the night was to get down to 10 seconds. I was almost there. I got down to 11 seconds.
Okay.
But that was my first time. That was my first time launching a motorcycle on the drag strip.
Yeah, that's interesting. Does that you think that helped when you started doing road racing? Having that
Yes
little bit
and
of
no.
experience?
Yes and no. The Honda, the CBR, the first time that I like ever tried to launch it, I think I stalled it. I think I like dumped the clutch too soon and stalled it. The R6, I can tell you, of all the bikes that I raced, that R6, I had my best launches ever on that R6. That thing is like I knew right where to let the clutch out to, and how many RPMs, like 9,000 RPMs, and I knew right where the clutch was going to grab, and I would just hold it there. And as soon as as soon as they would raise that green flag, man, I could just, because I wasn't putting a lot of power down. It was only, like I said, 116 horsepower. So every now and then the front wheel would come up, but I got really good at launching that R6. When I put my O5 on the drag strip here, I like slow rolled it. Like my reaction times, because it shows you on your little slip when you come back, they give you your little slip of paper. My reaction times from like when the light would turn green to my motorcycle would actually start moving was like 1.2, 1.5 seconds. Cause I didn't know. Over the course of the night, I got a little bit quicker, but I definitely wasn't like, I wasn't setting any records. That's for sure.
All right.
Were they using a full stage lights?
Yeah. I was racing. I was racing against other bikes. I raced this one guy. He also had a CBR 1000. I was better once I got going. I was better at like hitting my shift points. So I beat him a couple. He beat me once or twice, but I think I beat him most of the time. It was fun though. I mean, go as fast as you want, nothing to worry about. So I enjoyed that, but I was like, I don't see a future in this. So I just never went back and did it again.
I don't blame you. That's why I kept looking over my shoulder. I got a picture of my car at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. I used to drag race there.
All right.
And I tell people all the time it's a boring sport, comparatively speaking.
Yeah, I mean, hey, there's nothing wrong with going. I think my best pass was 11 seconds at like 134, and I mean, to me, that was like I was like, this is awesome. Going 134 miles an hour, but again, in a straight line, and it only lasts for 10 to 12 seconds. So I was like, it was fun to do it, but I definitely
an experience, right?
Yeah, an experience.
So speaking of experiences, we're going back to the Aprilia now, Easton.
All right.
Okay.
We're going back to the Aprilia. I want an overview on the overall experience of Easton's got an Aprilia.
I do.
What do you have?
Couple years. It's a 1100. First year with the 1100.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Yep. Oh man, that's an amazing bike. I had an opportunity to ride a demo when I was working with DRO Track Days. I can't remember who came to Indy, but they brought a couple demos, and I was one of the rider coaches. But I had an opportunity towards the afternoon to take one of those 19s out, and I was like, man, like I loved my 17. Obviously, way more power. Like that Honda made about 100, and I had it dynoed one time up in Phoenix at my buddy's shop. Mind you, it was July. It was super hot out. They did it at like 8 o'clock at night, and it dynoed at like 150 some. It was like 155 horsepower.
Interesting. Okay.
So I think in ideal conditions, I think that bike was right around 165. Is what me and a couple other guys that had Hondas, they had their bikes dynoed prior, and they said both of theirs were like 163 to 165, and mine was just slightly faster than theirs. So I figured that bike made about 165. The Aprilia, advertised at like 201, right? 202, 201, 202. So I knew that I was getting a lot more bike as well. It's funny because when I first bought it, I had no intentions of putting it on the track. Like that was going to be my street bike, and I loved it. I mean, I was still going out and doing my, doing the Saturday night rides with my buddies in Tucson. I did take it to the track one time just to ride it as like I was doing like C group coaching, and that day that turned out to be a bad idea. Had a little oops. So I found out real quick about parts availability I'll say. It took months. It took months for me to get the bike back because everything was coming from overseas.
Okay, hold on. That was your first time on track with the Aprilia?
That was my first time on track with the Aprilia.
We don't need
And
to.
there
You
was
don't
an
need to
oop?
say. You don't need to say what you're about to say.
Because Easton took
Let's
his
not talk
Aprilia
about
first
that.
time to the track and had an oops also.
It's an Aprilia thing, man. It's funny too. Like my wife jokes about it because she's like, well, pretty much every bike that I've ever bought, right after I bought it, something has happened. Obviously, going back to the, when we were talking about my Ninja ZX7Rs, it kind of seems to be a theme with me because you guys wouldn't know this, but it happened on the BMW as well. Not at the last round, but it happened at round 2. So we'll get there. Yeah, so I took the bike out. It was still on the tires. It was on the Pirelli like SPs or whatever they came with, the street tires. And I didn't think anything of it, but it was a dumb mistake. I messed up. It wasn't serious damage, but it was enough that it took several months. Like I bought the bike in May, and that happened in June. I didn't get the bike back until October. It just took forever for parts to come in. So after that happened, I was like, okay, now I know. Like it's hard to get parts for this thing, so let's not do that again. And so then talking about all this racing, right? So now I'm racing the R6. I'm racing extra classes. I'm not really riding on the street as much for whatever reason, and I think part of it was because a lot of my buddies that I rode with in Tucson, like a couple of them left. They moved away. My buddy Brandon, he sold his bike and just completely stopped riding altogether. And then a couple of other guys that I would ride with, they just stopped coming out. So then there was this new bike scene in Tucson, and I didn't know a lot of these people. Like they knew each other, but I was significantly older than a lot of these guys. I was late 30s. These guys were like barely 22, 23.
Right.
So I just didn't really have the interest in going out because it was like, okay, if I go down there, if nobody's there, then I just showed up and I'm just going to go home. Or I'm going to go down there and not know anybody. I'm just going to be like that weird guy in the corner that doesn't know who to talk to, even though a year prior there was some nights we'd have 25, 30 bikes. We would all meet up at the same location and we'd go on these really cool rides. But then it just little by little, everybody stopped riding or they left. So I stopped riding, and then I would take it out occasionally on the weekends. I'd go up the mountain by myself, like on a Saturday morning, and that was fun and all, but it just wasn't the same. So there was a stretch where the Aprilia sat in my garage, no kidding. In a matter of 8 or 9 months, I think I took it out 2 or 3 times. I was paying insurance. I'm paying for a motorcycle. I'm paying the insurance and I'm not riding it. It's just sitting in my garage.
Wife doesn't like to ride it.
Yep. And she didn't want to ride it either. So one day I was like, you know what? I've been racing the R6. I know what this bike can do, the Aprilia. I know what it can do just from riding it on the street. It's got all kinds of power. It's got all of the electronics. This is a race bike that's on the street right now. Why don't I just race the damn thing? So I got online and I ordered fairings. I took all of the stock stuff off the bike piece by piece. I took pictures of everything. I ended up selling all the street stuff. I didn't even keep any of it. So, I did all the things that needed to make it, street legal. I got all of the case covers, got the fairings, drilled everything, made it all race legal. And honestly, it didn't need much, really. The bike did not need much. I took the stock rear sets off and I put a set of Evol technology rear sets on it, and I started racing it. So I took it to Chuck Walla after the bike had been sitting. And this, mind you, this was a project I'd been working on for probably 4 or 5 months, where it had just sat. And then I started slowly, piece by piece, I started turning it into a race bike. Got my number plates, got my decals, got everything I needed to put it on the track. Finally, round 7. This is of 2000. This would have been 2022. Round 7 of CBMA. I took the bike out and I raced it. I rode it on Friday, put some slicks on it, and then I raced both bikes that weekend. I raced the R6 in the middleweight classes, and I raced the Aprilia. I only did the Formula 40 races because, yeah, I think for whatever reason, there was a reason I didn't race the Aprilia in their classes. I think I chose not to because I knew in like Super Sport Open and Formula Open, looking at the guys that were fighting for the championship, and I was like, I don't want to be out there. And these guys were fast, right? Like I'm stepping up from a 116 horsepower R6 to a 200 horsepower 1000 that I have limited track time on. So I was like, well, I'll go out and I'll race it in Formula 40 because those are much smaller grids, like maybe 8-10 bikes versus 30.
Mm-hmm.
So I raced it in Formula 40, and I actually did really well. Jeff Whitmer, he ended up winning the Formula 40 championship that year, but I felt bad because I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know that he was in the lead for the points, and I got behind him on the track, and I made we'll call it a questionable move to pass him, but like it was like he gave me like a small window of opportunity, and I took it, but I wasn't quite prepared for how the bike was going to react. So luckily nothing happened, but I definitely put a questionable move on him to get around him. And then, ended up finishing the race. And I was like, okay, we're racing the Aprilia. I kept the R6 for a while though, before I sold it. Cause I was like, well, I'll flip flop back and forth until somebody talked me into it. Like, hey, if you're going to race with the big boys, just keep the R6 for track days if you want to, but like just race the Aprilia.
Well, not to rub salt in the wound, but you might have wanted to keep that R6 one more year because they double every 6 months at this point.
Right. Yeah. True that.
Yeah, man.
So we're all the way up to 22 now.
Yeah. So this is 2 years ago. And now I'm at the point in the story that I told you. I said there's a story with the Aprilia, and we'll get there. And here we are. So a bunch of the CVMA guys, we decided, all right, we're going to go up to Utah and we are going to race USBA. We've had a bunch of USBA riders come down. They all love riding with CVMA, and we're going to go up there and we're going to show them how the CVMA boys race, right? So we go up there. I raced both bikes that first time. It was round 1. I raced both bikes. Did okay on the R6. This was my first time in Utah, mind you. We were racing east. So this was my first time. I went out in the morning on the R6 because I was like, all right, I want to get to know this track on a bike that I have a lot more seat time on.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I went out and did warm-ups in the morning on the R6. And it was weird too, right? Like we weren't used to the your warm-ups are also your qualifying, and you get 2 of them. We were used to how we were doing it at CVMA at the time was you got a warm-up session before you qualified.
Right.
That just changed recently. So I go out on the track and I'm like, all right, cool. Like I couldn't even tell you what my lap time was. I mean, it was ridiculous. My first time coming into, what is it? Is it the attitudes? The quick left, right, left, right, left, the attitudes. Yeah. So first lap on the R6, coming up that little straightaway, it goes uphill and then come into the attitudes. And of course I knew the track from watching videos, but I didn't realize that it was that sharp of a turn. Yep. Right. I went straight across the track into the rocks.
Yep.
Shook it off.
I almost did that.
And I'm thinking to myself, like the person behind me is probably like, this guy's an idiot. But again, first time there, came in way too hot, didn't turn in soon enough, didn't realize how sharp I had to, or how far over I had to lean. Target fixated, and I was like, all right, there's enough runoff. I went off the track into the rocks, looked over my shoulder, a couple bikes went by, got back on the track. I was like, shook it off. Let's not do that again. So went out, did a couple more laps, felt good about it. And I was like, okay, took the bike back in. Next session, I took the Aprilia out because I wanted to get times for both bikes. Now I knew the track. Okay, now let's put down some heaters on the Aprilia. I did okay. Like I know, and like it's weird up there how they do grids because like I know some people, if they're like in the lead for points, they'll put them further ahead, regardless. I think of how they qualified. I can't remember how it works.
Yeah, it goes by points. If you don't have points, then it goes by when you registered.
That's right. Yep. Yeah. So for my first couple races up there, I was middle or I was back of the pack, right? Like I think one of the races on the R6, I was the last bike. By the time I got around to like turn 4 or whatever, I'd passed a few. I did okay. I podiumed on the R6. I think I got a 3rd place. One of the middleweight races. I can't remember which one it was. The Aprilia, I did okay. No issues the first time. went back up, and initially I said, all right, I'm only going to do one round, and I'll see how I like the track. So I went back, and I can't remember which round it was. I think at the time maybe West Course was closed, and I think they were just doing the East Course for like the whole series or the whole season. Because we went back the next round, and I did not take the R6. I think at this point, did I still have it? I can't remember if I had it or if I'd sold it. So I go back up with the Aprilia, and no issues on Saturday. Rode all day. Everything was fine. I did okay in Formula 40, and I knew who my competition was or no, that's right. Yeah, because you guys, it was only on Saturdays. You guys, they didn't race both days. I knew who my competition was. I think it was from the previous round is what I'm referring to. So the lights go out, and I was on like the second or third row, but there was a lot of open spots in front of me on the grid. And somehow I got the whole shot going into turn one. I blew right by a guy. I think his bike stalled or something, or something happened to him on the starting line, and he didn't get a good launch. And somehow I got the whole shot for Formula 40. And I think it's an 8-lap race, correct? Their sprints are 8 laps up there.
7.
7? Okay. So I'm in the lead. Laps are going by, and I think we were on lap 6. Go through the attitudes. Go through the attitudes, and then that left-hander, and like Tuella corner, right?
Yep.
After the attitudes. So I'm coming down that back straight, and I'm coming into the clubhouse, and the rider behind me who was in second, and he shows me a wheel. So I'm like, not a chance, man. Like, I've been leading this entire race. I'm not going to, like, you want it, you're going to have to earn it.
Mm-hmm.
So we're about to turn in for windup and release. And I let off the brake as we're coming in, to allow myself to get past him. I don't know what the other rider did. I can only speculate. And after the fact, I had other people tell me, oh, this is what he said he did or whatever. Whatever. It was an incident. It was 2 years ago. I'm over it. But he either tucked the front or lost control of his bike, or somehow his bike went down, and his bike hit my swing arm on the left-hand side, and down I went. And went crashed, skidded across the track into the gravel there, into the clubhouse.
Yeah.
So that was,
for those listening, clubhouse is a 90 degree to the left.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, we weren't quite to the corner when he showed me a wheel, but we were getting close. And like, I mean, you have laps at that track. You know how fast you come into that turn. Yep. You're coming in, you're moving, you're hauling. So he hit me. I felt my bike like wiggle underneath me. And then next thing I know, like my whole bike is literally airborne on its side. And then me and my bike separate. I go like, I'm still going straight, but somehow when I landed on the ground, like my body spun around, and I'm literally looking at the bike, and it's coming right at me. I'm like, oh God, please don't hit me. Please don't hit me. Which it didn't. It didn't. I was fine. Nothing broken. My shoulder was pretty sore, but no injuries. Just a sore shoulder. And the bike was beat up. Somehow in that crash, a wire somewhere in the main harness, a wire got pinched. That happened in like April or May. So I had the whole summer. I did not go back to Utah. I had the whole summer. I tore the whole bike apart. Had to get new fairings, windscreen. I waited forever for a clip-on because my left clip-on broke. It took forever. Like, it took months before that thing showed up. A couple other things, rear sets, whatever. I got the bike back together. Round 1 of CVMA is starting. I take the bike out and I rode it. Now, mind you, the bike hadn't been on track since that incident at Utah.
Right.
Now it's September. So, 4 or 5 months later, bike's back together, no issues. I go out and I ride on, we do our track day on Friday. I ride the bike, seems to be doing fine. Nothing's wrong with it. Saturday, go out and qualify. And then my first race of the day, I don't remember which race it was. I'm on like lap 2. We're coming out of the bowl, going up the slide to go down the back straight. And all of a sudden, as I'm coming out of the bowl, I go to accelerate and the bike just bogs down and my whole dash lights up like a Christmas tree. Jeez. I thought I overheated because it was it was hot. It was probably 108, 109 degrees. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking, oh man, in my mind, I'm like, oh man, did I not burp the coolant? Did I not flush it out? Did I not fill it up enough? Like, I'm thinking that I made a mistake, something to do with the radiator, and spent the rest of the day trying to figure out what's wrong with the bike. I've got warning lights on my dash. Like, just the bike's just not running. My weekend was done basically at that point. That was round one. Round two, I went back out to work, but I didn't ride because the bike still wasn't fixed. I had taken it to a place here in town. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with it. They're mechanics. They put it on a dyno. They're like, yeah, it's still doing the same thing. They did clear out all the codes because it had a slew of codes when they downloaded it. So then I think they replaced a sensor or something like that. I went back out for round three. Yeah, because that was round one. Round two was October or November, whatever it was. I went back out for round three, and the bike seemed to be doing fine. And then all of a sudden, not in the race, luckily, I think it was actually during the Friday track day, the bike did the same thing. I went to get on the gas and it bogged down, and literally, like, it was a repeat of what happened at round one. So another, here we go all over again, rinse and repeat. Packed the bike up, didn't race the rest of the weekend. Called up my buddy Jason at Repardo, told him what was going on. He's like, bring us the bike. So I came home from the track, and like the following weekend, I threw the bike in the truck and I drove it down to Phoenix. And they went through everything. And in the process, I also found out the crash from Utah. I didn't realize at the time, the filler neck, like the lip of the radiator where the cap screws on, it had bent the metal just enough that it wasn't making a good seal.
Right.
So it was allowing air. It was like sucking air into my radiator or something. Or I think maybe it was spraying coolant out. Yeah, it was like somehow it was spraying coolant out underneath the cap, but it was coming out in like a fine mist. So I never realized it. I couldn't see it. They unfortunately found out when they got the bike hot enough on their dyno and it started like leaking. So he wasn't too happy about that. I ended up having to get a new radiator. So they replaced the harness. They took the whole bike apart. They're like, hey, we've checked every single thing that we can think of. This is our last ditch effort. We have a harness in the shop. We're going to plug it into your bike and see if the bike runs. And it did. The bike ran. They took it, they put it on the dyno, did it for a test run, and everything was fine. He calls me up. He's like, okay, come get your piece of crap. They were working on it. So I went back and I got the bike, brought it home, put everything back on it, and I put it on the track, and it went into limp mode in the middle of a race. Now this is like round 4 or 5. I can't even remember, right? So it's like this whole season up to this point, round 1 was a wash because that's when everything happened. I missed round 2. Round 3 was a repeat of round 1. I think round 4 I actually missed altogether for whatever reason. I think I didn't even go to the track that round. So now it's like round 5 or 6. I get the bike back. It's got a new harness in it, no issues. But now it's like March. It's getting hotter at the track. The bike is starting to overheat. And now all of a sudden it goes into limp mode. And I'm like, what is going on with this bike? So I download all the codes. I get on a bunch of forums. I start talking to people. Come to find out it was my gear position sensor. Somehow from the heat, it basically melted the sensor. And it was causing the bike it was going haywire. Like I lost quick shift. I lost blip. I lost something on my dash, went crazy. And then the bike went into limp mode. And it was like, it just didn't want to run.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to try this sensor before I take the bike back to the shop. I got a new gear position sensor. It came in. I put it in the bike. And finally, round 7, the bike ran fine.
You still sold it.
That was my first full season racing the Aprilia.
Wow.
So CVMA is over. It's like the story just never ends, right? It's a saga with me and these bikes. So
That's
CVMA
good.
is over. And one of the guys that works at Chuckwalla, he's also on the staff for CRA. And he's like, hey, we're going to be racing in Casa Grande at Podium Club. We're short on tech. And like me, Jeff, Anthony, a few others, Rainey, Nick, a bunch of us. He's like, are you guys going to be going? Would you be interested in coming and racing with CRA and can you guys do tech for us? And we're like, yeah, absolutely. Like I wanted to ride this track, because after I left Arizona and moved back up here, that's when the track opened.
Right.
So we go to CRA, and it's hot. It's May. I think it was May. And my bike is overheating like bad. Like my dash was reading like 240 plus.
Wow.
Other guys, yeah. Other guys are experiencing overheating issues, but they're seeing 220 to 225. I'm seeing 220 like on the starting grid before we even start racing. So I have no idea what's going on with my bike. I'm checking the coolant. It's low. I'm filling it. I'm burping it. I'm doing all this stuff with the bike. Cannot figure out. It's got a new radiator cap. It can't be electronics. There's something wrong with the engine or something wrong with the coolant system. Could not figure it out for the life of me. I'm talking to Jason because he was there as the Dunlop distributor. I'm talking to all kinds of people. I did an oil change at the track. I thought, okay, let's drain the oil, make sure there's no coolant in there. Drain the oil. It was fine. Doing everything I can think of to figure out what's going on with this bike. Made it through the weekend successfully, I guess. I ended up I didn't even start like my last 2 races because I knew there was something wrong with the bike and I didn't want to cook the engine. Up to this point, I had already cooked the engine enough. I didn't want to do any more damage. So I talked to Jason. I'm like, hey, can I bring the bike to you at the end of the day and you guys take it back to your shop and figure out what's going on with this thing? He's like, yep, bring it over. So I strip all the plastics off of it. I take everything off that's not needed. I wheel it over to him and he takes the bike to his shop. About 2 weeks goes by and they call me and then they sent me pictures and the engine was done. The engine, the pistons, like the valve seats were cracked. The cylinders had scoring. The engine had a lot of damage from when it was hitting those temperatures at Podium Club.
Wow.
I got that issue resolved. I'll just say that problem was fixed, and then the bike went up for sale, and then I sold it. I was like, good riddance. I'm done.
Yeah. Problem child. Sometimes you just got to get rid of them.
Yeah. It was crazy too, right? Because up to that point, I never had a problem. Up to the crash in Utah, I'd never had a problem with that bike.
Mm-hmm.
After that crash, it was like literally a full year went by, and I never, maybe one time completed a successful race weekend. It was just one thing after the next, after the next, after the next. Not having the parts availability, like anytime if I needed something, I had to order it. Like I think AF1 Racing was the company I was going through, or like HSBK, and even sometimes they didn't have parts. Not having the trackside supportability, there's not a lot of Aprilias at Chuckwalla. There seems to be more now, but like at the time there was maybe 5 or 6. Nobody really had experience working on them to diagnose problems, to help me figure out this, that, or the other. So after a year of issues, I was like, if I don't get rid of this bike, it's going to nickel and dime me to death. So once I got it fixed, took it back to Utah for the Summer Track Day Circus to make sure that it was good. It had no issues the whole weekend, and then I sold it.
Poor bike, finally gets good for you and you just get rid of it.
Yeah, hey, addition by subtraction. That's what that was. Addition by subtraction.
Yeah.
Oh man.
That was probably a good call.
Yeah,
and then you had a decision to make.
I had
You
a
looked
big
out
decision.
at the world. You seen all the bikes on the market.
Here we go.
What?
And then you found the best one, and obviously there was only one option.
I was waiting for it. I was waiting for the sales pitch. I knew you were going to say something about his sales pitch. Yeah. So Jeff, working at Long Beach BMW, the Aprilia hadn't sold yet. It was still in my possession. Still had it here at the house, but it was listed. It was actively listed in multiple places. I had a couple bites. I hadn't gotten any serious bites, but I was like, I should at least start looking for my next bike. So I reached out to Jeff and I said, hey, do you guys have any used, but new-ish, used in good shape S1000s? And he's like, well, as a matter of fact, I have one of our Apex staff bikes that we used when we, because they basically Long Beach BMW a couple years ago started sponsoring Apex with 2 S1000s. So we take those out, you know, control riding, whatever, as part of our track days. And one of the, this was last year. This was 2023. He's like, I have the 22. It's got like 3,000 miles on it. That bike was involved in a little oops at one of our track days. So Jeff had to take it back to the shop, and they had to tear it all down and fix everything. Not by me. Disclaimer, not by me. But he's like, it's got like 3,000 miles on it. Here's how much it's going to cost. And he goes, I can bring it to you. And I was like, deal. I said, just let me sell the Aprilia. So at this point, I'm like super excited because I'm like, oh man, like I know that this S1000 is a really nice bike. I had ridden, you know, two of ours as staff bikes. Granted, they didn't have like they had all of the restrictions still on them, and you know they were in street trim on street tires or whatever. But I knew what the bike was capable of. Seeing a lot of the fast guys out at Chuckwalla, you know, Jack Back and Corey Alexander. I'm trying Jeff on his bike. I knew what the bike was capable of. And so I definitely wanted it, but I had to get the Aprilia sold. And then just by sheer luck, somebody hit me up. They messaged me and they were like, hey, I think I had it. I'm trying to remember how much I had it listed for. And I wasn't trying to make a killing on it. Like I priced it so that it was an attractive, you know, I wanted it to be appealing to the buyer, to be like, wow, like that's actually not a bad deal for that bike. I think I listed it for 12. And the guy was like, I'll give you 11. And I was like, you know what? It's now or never. Deal. Yeah. It took a couple of weeks communicating back and forth. But he finally did end up making it here to Vegas. And I gave him the bike and all the spares that I had with it. And I was like, good luck. You know, best of luck to you, my friend. Adios.
Yeah. Oh, hopefully he's not. I guess it doesn't matter if he's listening and gets the history. You know, it was fine after that. It was just
the bike runs fine.
So.
After a lot of work, and well, not so much work by me, but just the money that I dumped into that thing, I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
you're on a.
I thought maybe it would have been. Sorry, I thought you would have been scared away from maybe European brands after that story, but
no, just the Italians. Just the Italians. I have my buddy Jason. It's funny, before I even bought that Aprilia, he had, I can't remember if it was an Aprilia or a Ducati. I think he had an older Ducati or something, or maybe it was like an MV. He had an exotic bike. He had an Italian bike that he was thinking about selling. And at that time, I thought he was selling it as a track bike, but he was actually selling it as a street bike. I remember asking him about it, and he made kind of a funny comment that I won't say on here what he said, but he's, you know, his description of owning an exotic motorcycle, it hit the nail on the head for me. After I went through all those problems with the Aprilia, I was like, yep, he wasn't kidding. Mm-hmm. So after that, I was done. So now I'm on a 22 S1000RR, courtesy of our good friend Jeff Whitmer and Long Beach BMW. And it so far has been absolutely amazing. I love this bike. I absolutely love it.
So favorite bike of all time, or just real good?
So definitely favorite race bike.
Okay.
In priority order, the BMW for sure, number one, the R6, a very close number two, and the Aprilia is a very distant number three. I would race a 2012 R6 again right now before I would get back on an Aprilia.
Interesting. Do you think that's just because of the bad experience with that one specific, or?
Absolutely. It has nothing to do. Listen, they're amazing machines. You own one. That 2019, like I was telling you, I had a chance to ride a demo at Indy on a track day, and I was blown away at how smooth, like just coming out of turn 2 onto the straightaway and just cracking the throttle on that bike. And I'd been on my Aprilia I had taken out there, and I was impressed, you know, again, going from an R6 to an Aprilia, that was a huge jump. But when I went from my 17 to that 2019, the factory 1100, I was like, man, this thing is a missile. It even on street tires, that thing was super smooth. I was very impressed by that bike. I just think something happened in that crash in Utah.
Yep.
Something happened that just, domino effect, and it just one thing led to another. So, but for me personally, my BMW is definitely my favorite race bike. Favorite of any bike I've ever put on the track.
Okay.
The R6 is number 2 though.
So I'm going to put you out on a limb on the BMW.
Yeah.
So I know you recently, last round, I believe, ran your new PR.
Yeah, I watched. Yeah, thanks for the shout out, Jeff. I did.
So
That.
I have a question related to that.
Yeah.
I want you to put a percentage on. You say the BMW is your favorite bike, race bike so far. What percentage of it is you getting better, or better equipment underneath you?
That's a good question.
Oh, that is a great question. I'm gonna say it's probably in the range of 65 to 70% I can put on the bike, and I would say 30 to 35% me. So yeah, so Jeff threw it out there. I got a PR at the last round when you were there. I finally, I've been chasing 49s for literally 2 years at Chuckwalla, because I got down to like a 51 flat on my R6, and then I got down to a 50.6 on the Aprilia. But that was, like I said, that was like 2 years ago, or a year and a half, whatever. Probably 2 years ago on the R6. So I've been chasing that for so long, and all the guys that are, the whole Apex crew, they all know it. We give each other a hard time, and we tease each other and we talk a lot of crap, but like at the end of the day, we also support each other. And like these guys, they know how long I've been chasing a 49 out there. Like in my eyes, and this is just my personal opinion, you're not, if you're doing like real low 50s, 50s, 51s, 52s, like especially on a 600, you're moving, right? Like you're moving, especially if you're just like a club racer. Years ago, before Chuckwalla got resurfaced, like the guys that were running 49s and 50s, like we put them on a pedestal. Like they were considered the elite racers at Chuckwalla. But again, these are guys like, again, Michael Gilbert, Chad Lewin, Aussie Dave. I'm trying to think out who else. We had some other Moto America guys that were coming out there, and then they were going out there and running like 48s, and we're like, oh my gosh, how is that even possible?
Right.
Now we've got guys out there running 44s, but it took me several years to get there. It was a lot on me, just racecraft, mentality, just not using the damn brakes so much, to be completely honest with you. Like once you start getting down to those speeds, like it pretty much like a 50, 51, even like a 52 flat, like you said, you're still moving, but it's just making those little minor, and they seem so minor when you look at them individually, but I had the opportunity, you were out there, I had the opportunity to do Dale's Day on that Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Were you there for that? Yeah, you were there, right?
Yep.
And like what him and Josh were talking about, if you can find a tenth of a second in each corner, that's almost 2 seconds, right? Yep. So for me, it was all about knowing what I knew about the track, and knowing the hardest part for me, I guess actually the easiest part for me, was being able to identify my own weaknesses. Like there are like 3 corners on that track, depending on which direction, whether we're going clockwise or counterclockwise. Every race weekend, I would go to the track and be like, well, I know I'm going to screw up in this turn, or I know I'm going to go slow in this turn. I know I'm going to overbrake in this corner, because I do it every single time. And I think that's why I think having that bike underneath me gave me just that little extra boost of confidence, because I know what the bike's capable of. Like I just had to let the bike do what it can do. So, but again, tenth of a second here and there, like, so I went from a 50.6 was my PR on the Aprilia to a 49.6 on the BMW. But now finally getting over that threshold, now I look at it, I'm like, cool. Well, now I'm only, I think it was like a 49.65 something. So I'm like 7/10 away, 7/10 of a second away from a 48. Like that's my new mentality, you know?
Right.
Absolutely.
Never satisfied.
Yeah. And then I'll get the 48s and I'll be like, and I look at people like Lug, Ty, Will, you know, these guys like, well, Lug lives in like the 45s and 46s now, but a couple of these other guys, you know, they literally go out on the track and they're living in the 47s and 48s. So I'm right there. I just have to figure out what's next. So that's my goal for the next round is a 48, to be completely honest. Even if it's a 48.999, I don't care. Kind of like I watched your podcast with Lug, you know, and he said that he went out there and he's like, I don't care if it's a 49 or a 44.999, you know, like that's me. I just want that 48.999. I don't care. It's a 48.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
And like you said, then you want the 147.999. Then you want the
and then I'm going to want the
146.
47s. Yeah. Well, it wasn't until I kept telling myself that when I finally get that elusive 49 that I've been chasing for 2 years, I said, I'm not even going to think about Moto America till I get it. I got it. And then like right around the week of Christmas, I'm already like that ball is already rolling. I already got my my race number approved and
Well, that was my next question. Take us into Moto America, what you're planning on doing this year.
So initially I was just going to do the 2 West Coast rounds, the Ridge and Laguna, just because, you know, proximity from Vegas, thinking, you know, financially there's a cost to do all of this, obviously. And then Lug kind of sort of talked me into adding to that plan. So I'm going to do Barber, and then I think I'm doing the season. I'm going to do all 5. I had a good chat with Richard from Apex and Will this weekend. We talked about a lot of stuff, and I have a plan up here. Just got to put it down to paper, but I have a vision. I have a plan, and I've got the support around me that I need. So, like, this is it. You know, I'm not getting any younger. I'm gonna be 45 in a couple months, so it's time. Like, to me, it's like I got to do this now while I still can. So
I understand that feeling 100%. I'm a bit behind you and a bit ahead of you. I'm 46 and I'm not quite ready to make this shift you're making, obviously. But
yeah, you still could, man. You still could. You just got to keep coming out. You just got to get those points. You don't even have to be an expert. You just need the points.
There you go.
There you
You
go.
just gotta. I think the theme I'm seeing is you just got to spend enough time down at CVMA, and then you're good to go.
So I'll be completely honest. Yes, and you know, you guys did one of your podcasts, you know, talking about how pretty much like the fastest racers in the country, you know, the Moto America guys. Some come there to race, some come there to test, right? But as far as like club racing, I know you guys had said on your podcast, like, could we officially put that out there, like taking bets, you know, to other clubs, like who's faster than CVMA? I know Lug talked about it. I have the same mentality he does because I'm out there all the time and I see it. I would put, not myself included, I would put the fastest guys from Chuckwalla up against any other club series in this country, hands down. There's just too much evidence from what we see round after round after round. And the guys that are making that jump, yes, you know, there's Ware, there's AFM, I know there's CCS on the East Coast, and there's other clubs out there, MRA, OMRA, WERMRA. And, you know, I'm sure each one of those clubs probably does have, you know, their elite riders, and I'm sure some of them are Moto America guys, but the fastest of the fast come to the Southwest to race, you know, month in and month out. It's there. So I say all that to say I have a lot of laps there. I've ridden quite a few tracks. I've raced with 4 different organizations now. ASMA, a couple times at Indy, I raced with those guys just when they happened to be in town. I raced CRA at Podium Club. Obviously, I raced USBA, and you know, this is my 5th or 6th year now racing at Chuckwalla. So, but I think that track really does prepare you. It's helped prepare me, I think, to make that jump. Plus all the other tracks.
Good deal. Well, yeah. It's good to hear. It's not just lug nut talking like crazy. It's not just. I mean, Cole, you went down there. Seems like everyone we're talking to, Chuck Wall is the spot. CVMA are the
Again,
guys.
I'm
So
I mean, this is my first year doing Moto America. I'm nervous and I'm excited at the same time, but like that's just my personal opinion. I'm in the big picture. I'm a nobody. I'm a privateer. I'm a privateer who's going to go out there and and give it my go at stock 1000 and see how I do. Like I said, I'm not getting any younger, so I got to do it now.
And
It's been a dream.
what a bucket list item.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm totally rooting for you. That's
Thanks.
awesome.
Thanks.
I mean, there's not that. I mean, it's a rare air to say you race a Moto America event. Period.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to talk about unobtainable? Track days, racing, club racing Moto America. Like that's sweet. That's
I
sweet. This is
think,
something that a lot of people don't get a chance to do. So
yeah. There are a lot of racers on those grids that I've gridded up against at Chuckwalla or other tracks. A lot of them are mid pack, right? Like they're not the guys up front with like the Corey Alexanders and the Ezra Bobiers, but some of these guys are legit, top 15 lugs, I'm trying to remember how they all finished at Laguna last year. I was out there as one of Ty's crew chiefs, but Ty, Lug, and Will all raced, and I mean, all three of them did pretty well for privateer guys. They did pretty well. So that's why I say, like, I know if I can at least get down into the 48s, or maybe even my goal is to get down to a 47 by the end of the season. So I've got 4 rounds to do it. I just need to find 1.6 seconds. I just need to find another 10th in every corner. And that'll give me that 47.
If you end up doing the whole season, which you're committed to it, you are doing the whole season.
I am.
You're just doing it.
It just makes sense to do it. It doesn't make sense to only do 2 or 3 rounds. Like, because if I'm going to do 3 rounds, the only one that was questionable for me was Brainerd, because I didn't really know if I wanted to do that one. But I already told my family, and I have a lot of family back in Northeast Pennsylvania, so they're already like super excited to come out in September to New Jersey to watch me race. So I'm like, okay, there's 4. I might as well do Brainerd as well. So I'm like, okay.
So they're doing Jersey, Brainerd, Laguna.
It goes
Barber.
In order. It goes Barber, Brainerd, the Ridge, Laguna, and then Jersey. But there's a 2-month gap between Laguna and Jersey.
Gotcha.
Are they not going to Atlanta this year then?
No, Stock 1000 is only doing 5 rounds this year.
Okay.
The other thing that it came up, a couple people asked me, they're like, well, do Superbike Cup. And I'm like, pump the brakes, man. Like, this is my first season. Like, I also have to think about, the financial aspect of that. So, which I'm working on that too. I'm going to try to put together a sponsorship proposal package and reach out to various companies, people, the motto, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. The idea I have in mind is I want to reach out to small businesses, not chain organizations, not anybody within the motorcycle industry. Well, I do have a couple shops that I'm going to reach out to that I know of and just, see what they'd be willing to do. But my whole thing is like support small businesses that support me. So I'm going to try to put together and I've had a couple people reach out to me with some ideas to put together a sponsorship proposal package. And then I'm going to email everything out and see what happens, because obviously that's the biggest thing, right? Is the cost.
Yep.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, traveling cross country.
Yeah.
I can't imagine doing it with race cost on top. I've done a little bit of cross country motorcycle travel before.
Yeah, you have
track days, but yeah, I can't imagine doing a whole race weekend with that. So,
well, fortunately, I already have the transportation all but secured. So that was one of the biggest question marks, right? Was how am I going to get my bike and my gear and all my stuff from track to track to track? Mm-hmm. But that is already, I'll call it a 90% done deal. That should be finalized here probably in the next month or 2. So the rest of it is just going to be on race entries, tires, gas, and then my own transportation, right? Like flying to each track, hotel, food. So just going to have to eat ramen noodles for like the next 6 months.
There
They're
you go.
raising the price on those things nowadays.
Yeah. So,
Well, I'm trying to get Easton to go out to the ridge so we can root for you guys.
have you been there?
Yeah.
Have you?
Don't start. Don't go to the ridge. Don't start the ridge. That's
No,
Easton's home baby track. He's in love with.
I just from watching Moto America, man, that's a really nice track. I think Laguna is like a bucket list item for me just to even ride it, even if I wasn't going to race. Just because, right? It's like one of the most famous tracks, right? The corkscrew,
Right.
Yep. In the world, not just here in America, but in the world,
like
everyone knows it.
You have to ride Laguna, so now I'm going to get that opportunity. Coda is one of my bucket list items, but unfortunately, they're not racing there. So Superbike Cup would be an option, but I don't think I'll do that. And then Barber, right? Barber, Road Atlanta, Road America. If I could get an opportunity to ride any one of those 3 tracks, that would. So at least I get to check one of those off. And then I'm super excited about. I'm excited about Barber, the Ridge, and Laguna. Brainerd and New Jersey, I'm like, whatever. I'll just do it.
Right.
I mean, I'm excited, but right to do the whole thing. But those 3 tracks are the ones that I'm really looking forward to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the ridge is an awesome track.
It is fun. It is
I've
very
only
fun.
done track days out there, but I've done probably 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
Out there, and I'm not sure about that chicane, but other than that, I like the track. That new chicane they put in is a little odd. I think it kind of takes away from the track in certain aspects.
The one right the first one before you go up the hill for turn 1.
Yep.
Yeah, that track had like a very, very nice, smooth, almost roller coaster flow to it. And part of that was the turn 1. You come off a super long straight, and you're hitting turn 1, and you don't even really need to brake because turn 1 just sheds it all for you.
Right, because
Beautifully,
it's uphill, correct?
Yep. Yeah. Turn 1 into 2, you're like tap the brakes a little bit and then just send it over and go up the hill, and you're right back on the gas. And the chicane kind of just throws that flow off a little bit, in my opinion. A lot of people like it. Definitely adds more technicality to it, but
Sure.
Between 1 and 3, it's 500 feet. Is that correct?
Man.
in elevation, just about. I think
Is it
that
really?
spot's about 300. The downhill on the back section is 500 feet. So
Down the what's it called? The staircase or whatever they call it.
It's the baby
that?
it
corkscrew.
is a corkscrew. I think the ridge complex is what they call that.
Okay, yeah, that turns pretty cool. Because I mean, you're like coming in, downshifting, braking. It's like a first or second gear entry, and then it just drops you down in. That looks pretty cool. It was my understanding they put the chicane in for safety reasons, because of how fast you were coming into turn 1, especially like the superbike class.
Yeah. I mean, the club racers out there, people were coming into that corner at 100 and upwards of 180 miles an hour into turn 1. So, yeah.
Wow.
When you do track days there, it's usually with or without. They still do it without the chicane.
Yeah, they'll still do track days. Yeah.
That's fast. Like going counterclockwise at Chuck on the back straight from turn 11 down to turn 10. You're probably this is just me, before I'm getting on the brakes and eventually downshifting, I'm probably hitting 140 something. So I can't even imagine coming into a turn at 100 and 180.
Yeah.
See that, Easton? I just realized where my problem is.
What? You just
I'm braking at like 134 on a similar bike. So
yeah.
There's where I'm losing it.
I'll say that straight. I mean, it's a half mile long straight, and I don't have the best lines coming into it, whatever, but I would get to the top of 5th gear. And the only reason I didn't shift into 6th is because I knew that if I shifted into 6th, I was going to distract myself and then brake way too early. But so I would hit the top of 5th gear like probably about 3/4 of the way through and just hold it there. And there was still room to speed up. And that's me, yeah. So yeah, definitely long straight, high speed.
Yeah,
they did need the chicane for that reason. So
yeah, it makes sense. I was going to say, when I raced that weekend when I was out at Podium Club with CRA, I think I hit one. Oh, what did they? Coop was out there. He was doing like trap speed something. Oh no, I'm sorry. That was at the track day circus, not Podium Club. I think Podium Club, before I rolled off coming into turn one when I was racing with CRA, I think because it has a little thing on there, you can go back and see what your top speed was for that session.
Yeah, I'm curious.
I think I was hitting like 155 to 160. But you guys were there. You can come out of that last turn, pretty much full throttle all the way up over that hill and then all the way back down. So I think I was hitting 155 to 160.
My Aprilia's get a 170 on it from that track. So,
that's
and
awesome.
I don't know. It is re-geared. It's down one, up one. I don't know if it's been adjusted. I don't know, but that is what it says on there. So, yeah, that is some speed.
My dog's over here. He's like, "Hey, Dad, are you gonna feed me?"
Well, you probably. On that note, we've taken enough time, but I want to.
What time is it? Oh man, 2 hours. I didn't even. It feels like I didn't even realize it was that time.
Yeah, I think we've taken enough time, but maybe we can get. Maybe after you guys do this first round of Moto America, maybe we'll get a couple of you on here at the same time. We can talk about how that all went down.
Hey man, that would be awesome. I know Lug and I for sure. Another one of our guys from a new-ish member of Apex is also doing Moto America. I don't know who else is. I don't know if Ty is or not.
Ty's probably just golfing.
Yeah, that's his thing now, man. I don't even know if he plays video games. He's golfing a lot. So I tried when I went with those guys to a driving range when they got married, and yeah, I'll stick to two wheels, man. I'm no good with a golf club. I'm just not.
That's just about the same amount of money. So
what's that golfing
costs as much as a motorcycle weekend?
Yeah.
Does it really?
Yeah.
Well,
it doesn't have to, but it can. It can.
Yeah. No thanks, man. I'll stick to motorcycle. I'll stick to the dangerous sport if I'm going to spend that kind of money.
I want to give you the opportunity. I know you got, sponsor stuff for this Moto America coming up. Is there, give you a minute or some time to shout out anybody you want to shout out?
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. I will start out with Apex. This was the shirts that we wore last year or 2 years ago when I went there to be Ty's crew chief. The two biggest sponsors that I've had, two biggest I'll call it organizations or people that have supported me over the last couple of years is Apex Assassins and Law Tigers. Specifically Law Tigers, Arizona. Shout out Jay. Thanks for everything, man. But yeah, Law Tigers, Apex Assassins. Just recently went back from Pirellis to Dunlops to get ready for Moto America. So I got to give a shout out to Dale at Racer's Edge. He and another huge shout out to Steve Weir. I don't know if you follow him on Instagram or whatever. He's the BMW engineer. Steve and Dale combined, just working with those guys the last couple rounds to help me get the bike dialed in. Making that change from Pirellis to Dunlops was a huge help. Long Beach BMW, and Jeff for giving me an amazing bike. Jared at Motorsport Exotica. Those guys took a stock street bike and turned it into this amazing machine that I'm racing now. So I can't give enough credit to him and those guys for getting that thing all dialed in for me, performance wise. Irina with Lieto made my bike look absolutely amazing. Thank God the crash. that was one thing I didn't talk about. Round two, I tucked the front. A huge gust of wind came across the track as I was entering turn 10, and it blew a huge patch of sand, and the front tire lost traction, and down she went. So luckily, it was just literally just a foot peg, a clip-on, and a couple scratches, but mostly the bike was unscathed. So yeah, Irina with Lieto, they did an awesome job wrapping the bike. That's about it right now, but I'm hoping by round one of Moto America that I've got a couple more people to say thank you for. And again, thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yep, absolutely. Appreciate you coming on.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, and hey, let the guys down at CVMA know, as long as anyone else listening, the opportunity to prove that CVMA has the fastest of the fast may be coming around the corner. So that's all I'm going to say on that for now. But
I love it.
we got
I
some
love
things
it.
in the making. So
That's awesome.
and then
And hope to meet you sometime, man. If you ever, when do you think you're going to make a trip to the West Coast?
well,
Another trip.
I don't know about this year for me. But
Okay.
if you, I don't remember when you guys are doing Barber, but I might come down and say hi at Barber since you guys.
Barber is the third weekend in, or sorry, it's the second weekend in May. It's like
May.
let me look real quick. Yeah, Barber is, oh my gosh, where's my calendar? Sorry. It's May 17th, 18th, and 19th.
All right. Yeah, we'll see. I'll either make it out there, or, and also want to extend the offer to you. I got bikes in the garage. Some of those tracks you mentioned happen to be close
Hey,
to my backyard, so feel free to fly over whenever you want.
how far are you from Road Atlanta?
4 hours.
Hey, that's not bad. That's my drive to Chuckwalla.
Yep. So, went and watched Moto America there last year, so it wasn't too bad.
We just might have to make that happen sometime.
Works for me. And I think if you're
Okay,
coming
listen.
out, someone else will be here. So
I'll be there. I'll be there every time. But we've got to go.
Yeah.
That's
Let's
Thanks
we'll
for
carry this
coming.
on.
And
yeah.
we'll see y'all next time.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for listening. Make
Yeah,
sure.
thanks, guys.
Just one last thing. Make sure you're watching Moto America this year. Watch Stock 1000. Check out our boys.
Absolutely.
See everyone
Absolutely.
next week.
Watch me go fast. Thanks, guys.